Hello, boys and girls. Mrs. B here. Time to read another story. This time it's a chapter book. Dolphin Diaries. Racing the Wind by Ben M. Baglio. October 31st. Morning. The Caribbean. I just saw a pod of orcas. I counted 25 of them as they came right up to the side of our boat. They were absolutely gorgeous and very playful and friendly, too. Even though they're called killer whales, they're really dolphins, the biggest of them all. Just remembered, it's Halloween. How weird to think that Lindsay and Maria and all of my other friends back in Florida will be dressing up and going out trick-or-treating tonight, while I'm in the middle of the Caribbean on my way to Venezuela. The past few weeks have been so great. We've spotted many different species of dolphin. Mom and Dad got most of them on video, too. Jody McGrath paused and gazed over the side of Dolphin Dreamer, hoping to spot more orcas. She had been traveling with the project known as Dolphin Universe for a few months now. Her parents, Craig and Gina McGrath, were marine biologists. They headed the project, sailing around the world with their family and crew to study dolphins. But the orcas were long gone, and Jody couldn't see any sign of life above the small, choppy waves. With a sigh, she turned back to her diary. We've been really lucky with the weather, too. Plenty of wind, not too much rain. No storms at all. But Harry doesn't seem too pleased with the wind today. For some reason, he called it a backing wind, and it seems to worry him. Jody broke off again to look toward the helm where their captain, Harry Pierce, was steering. Just then, the first mate, Cameron Tucker, came out of the radio room, a worried expression on his handsome face. "Captain," he said, "I've been listening to the weather reports, and they're not good." "That tropical depression?" Harry responded quickly. Cam nodded. "It's been upgraded. They're calling it a hurricane now. Hurricane Delilah." Jody caught her breath, shocked. They were going to get caught in a hurricane? Gina McGrath frowned and pushed an unruly lock of black hair out of her face as she spoke. "But surely it's awful late for a hurricane." Harry nodded in agreement. The worst months are August and September, but hurricanes have been known to happen as late as November. We've had luck on our side all summer. But our luck may have just run out, he concluded, his bearded face very grim. "Should we put into port somewhere?" Craig McGrath asked, stepping forward and putting an arm around his wife. But Harry shook his head. "Too late for that now," he replied. "If we head toward any of the islands in Lesser Antilles, we'll be sailing straight into the hurricane's path. That's the most dangerous route of all." He gazed out at the deceptively calm-looking sea and drew a breath. Turning back to Craig and Gina, he said decisively, "Our safest course is to keep it south of Delilah's path, whatever that takes us. I hope we can keep out of her way, but if she catches up with us, well, hurricanes rotate clockwise. So if we stand with our back to the eye and keep heading to our left, hopefully we'll be spun off by the incoming high winds." Cam nodded in agreement. "It won't be a comfortable ride, though," he added, glancing at the McGraths. Gina managed a faint smile. "Maybe I'd better pass out the seasickness tablets," she said, trying to joke. "Sounds like a good idea," Harry replied seriously. He turned to Craig. "Would you take the helm? I need to get below and plot a new course. Give me a shout at the first sign of a change in the weather." Glancing at the horizon where gray clouds were massing, he added, "I think we've got a couple of hours yet." Jody's heart was pounding. She couldn't help feeling very afraid. Growing up in Florida, she'd seen the damage a hurricane could do. This was much more scary than trick or treat. Seeing Jody's face, Gina hugged her briefly. Honey, why don't you go down and make sure everything in your cabin is safely stowed away? She said. Tell Brittany and your brothers to do the same. We don't want things flying around and causing problems when the weather gets rough. Jody nodded and went below to find her 8-year-old twin brothers, Sean and Jimmy. They had already heard the news. We're going to help Mei Lin check on the bilge pump, Jimmy told her. Mei Ling Zong, a slender young Chinese woman, was the engineer and cook. It's very important that the pumps are working right, Sean added. Otherwise, when the giant waves start crashing down on us, the boat will fill up with water and we'll sink. His blue eyes sparkled with excitement. Did you know that in a really big storm, waves can be as tall as buildings, 50 feet high, or even more? Jody shuddered and hurried back to the cabin she shared with Brittany Pierce, the captain's 13-year-old daughter. Brittany was stretched out on her bunk, listening to music through the earphones of her portable CD player. She sat up when she saw Jody's worried expression. What's wrong? She asked. The color drained from her face when she heard Jody's news. A hurricane, she cried. Oh, what are we going to do? Your dad thinks we can outrun it, Jody explained, but it could be a rough ride. Oh, why didn't my mother take me with her to Paris instead of leaving me with Daddy? Brittany cried. She'll be sorry when she hears how I drowned. Nobody's going to drown, Jody replied sharply. Harry's taken us through storms before, and he'll get us through this one too. She spoke with more certainty than she felt. She didn't want Brittany to know that she was frightened too. There was a knock at the cabin door. Then Maddie looked in. The attractive young African-American woman was the McGrath's personal assistant, and also the onboard teacher, making sure that Jody, Brittany, and the twins didn't fall behind in their studies while they were away from their regular schools. It's time for lessons, girls, she said. I'm used to having to round up the boys, but it's not like you two to be late. But there's a hurricane coming, Brittany cried. Maddie nodded. I know, honey, she said quietly. It worries me too. But fretting about it won't help. We need to keep our minds occupied. And I think history, geography, and math are the best things for that, while Harry and Cam concentrate on sailing us out of danger.